You are listening to the Happiest Lives podcast with Jill Lillard, episode 140.
Welcome to the Happiest Lives podcast, where you'll learn to think better, feel better, and become the woman God says you already are. Here's your host, Jill Lillard.
Hey, everyone. Welcome back to the Happiest Lives podcast. I'm so glad you guys are here today. We're starting a new series, and it is entitled Why We Keep Missing Each Other. And if that title lands right away, like, yes, that's exactly what it feels like, you're in the right place. This series is about emotional attunement. Not performing connection, not memorizing lines, not trying to say things the right way. We're going to talk about why connection breaks down even when people love each other and are genuinely trying. We tend to assume that if you care, if you make the effort, if you're committed and you're sharing a life, that should all be enough to keep connection steady. But those things alone don't protect connection, especially once it starts to feel at risk. Sometimes disconnection starts with exhaustion, stress, old hurts, or simply not knowing how to stay emotionally present. But once connection feels threatened, fear usually takes the lead. This series is about understanding what protects connection and what breaks it, so that relationships don't fall apart when fear starts to take over. So over the next few episodes, we'll talk about why connection starts to feel fragile, how fear, not lack of love, shapes how people show up, and the ways we try to force closeness when it feels threatened, and how to stay emotionally oriented toward each other in everyday life and when things get hard. Now, I want this to stay very grounded. I want it to be very usable, accessible for you. I don't want it to feel overwhelming. So each episode is going to focus on one clear piece of the puzzle. And today, in this first episode, we're going to lay the foundation. We're going to talk about what emotional attunement actually is, why we're wired for it, and why missing it hurts more than we expect. So let's start there. There's a particular kind of loneliness I hear about all the time. It's not that loneliness of being alone. It's the loneliness of being in a relationship and still feeling missed. People say things like, we talk, but it doesn't feel connecting. We're fine, but I don't feel close. I don't feel seen anymore. I don't know how we keep missing each other. And this is where people usually draw the wrong conclusion. Most of the time, this isn't happening because people don't care. There's effort, there's commitment, there's a shared history and a shared life. What's usually missing isn't love, it's emotional attunement. So let's talk about what emotional attunement actually is. At its most basic level, emotional attunement is staying emotionally oriented toward another person. It's where your attention goes when something matters. It's whether you stay present or start to check out, internally or externally. Attunement is the felt sense that you notice me, you're responsive to me, you're here with me, you're not leaving when things get uncomfortable. Most people don't realize how much they rely on attunement until it's gone. When it's there, it's quiet. When it's missing, it's loud. People don't usually say we're misattuned. They say things like, I don't feel safe bringing this up to you. I feel alone in this. It feels like I'm on my own. I don't think you really get me. That's what the absence of attunement sounds like. Now, I want to clarify. Attunement isn't agreement. It's not fixing. It's not understanding everything perfectly. And it's not intensity. You can be attuned without agreeing. You can be attuned without solving the problem. You can be attuned while things are still messy and unfinished. What matters is whether you stay emotionally present. Attunement sounds like, I'm here. This matters. I don't fully understand yet, but I am staying. We don't have to figure this out right now to stay connected. It's the difference between being in the room and actually being with someone. And this matters because our nervous systems are paying attention to attunement all the time. We're wired to notice whether someone is emotionally available or not. We track tone, we track responsiveness, we track presence. So when attunement breaks, even briefly, our system reads that as a risk. That's when protection starts to show up. And that's why emotional attunement matters so much. Here's what's going on underneath that. Emotional attunement is not a preference. It's part of how we're built. From the very beginning, safety isn't just about being fed or cared for, it's about responsiveness, tone, facial expression, whether someone turns toward you or away from you. Our nervous system learns early to track these signals, and that wiring doesn't disappear just because we grow up. As adults, we're still registering whether someone is emotionally available, whether we're being responded to, whether we're alone in something that matters. So when attunement is there, we tend to feel steady without thinking about it. And when it's not there, something shifts. People often describe this as feeling dismissed, feeling unseen, feeling like they're too much, feeling like they're on their own. What's happening underneath is that the nervous system is reading disconnection as risk, not danger in a dramatic sense, but risk to the relationship. That's why disconnection hurts more than we'd expect it to, not because we're fragile or dependent, because connection is how we regulate. This is also why people react strongly in moments that seem small on the surface. A missed response, a distracted a partner checking out mid-conversation. Those moments don't just feel annoying, they feel destabilizing, especially if they happen often. And again, this doesn't mean someone is doing something wrong. It means that attunement has dropped and the system is trying to figure out how to get safe again. That's where protection starts to show up. This wiring shows up everywhere. It's not just in those big emotional moments, but it's in everyday life. So in marriage, it often looks very ordinary. It's in those mundane moments. You're talking, but the conversation just stays very practical. Schedules, tasks, kids, logistics. Nothing's technically wrong. You are functioning, but emotionally, it feels like you're talking at each other instead of with each other. Or one of you brings something up that actually matters, and the other is tired, distracted, or half listening. There's no argument, no blow up, just a moment that doesn't quite land. And most of the time, you move on. But those moments don't disappear, they stack. Not into anger right away, but into distance. In friendships, it can show up a little differently. You keep things pleasant instead of honest. You don't ask the deeper questions. You don't say the thing you're actually thinking because it feels easier not to. So the friendship continues. It feels thinner than it used to. In parenting, it often shows up when a behavior is getting addressed, but the emotion doesn't. So a child acts out, you correct it, maybe it stops, maybe it doesn't, but either way, the emotional moment passes without much connection. Before we keep going, I wanted to offer you something simple. In almost any relationship, there's a moment where you feel the shift. You feel yourself start to push or go quiet, or explain or hold back. That's usually the fork in the road. I put together a short tool called the 2-minute attunement check-in. It's just a small checklist you can use when you feel tension or emotional intensity. It helps you notice your urge under stress and ask one honest question before you react. Nothing complicated, just insight and a little direction. If you'd like it, you can grab it at myhappyvault.com. All right, let's get back to it. And again, none of this means someone doesn't care. It means attunement wasn't centered in that moment. And when enough of those moments pass, something starts to shift inside people. They stop reaching as openly, or they reach louder, or they reach indirectly. That's usually when people start saying things like, I don't feel safe enough bringing this up to you, or I don't feel close anymore, or I don't know why this feels so hard. And that's the point where most people assume something has gone wrong with a relationship, when what's actually happened is that emotional safety has started to thin. Which brings us to the next piece. This is usually the point where things start to shift, not because people stop caring, but because connection starts to feel uncertain. And when connection feels at risk, something pretty predictable happens. People move into self-protection. Now, that protection doesn't usually look dramatic. It often looks reasonable, practical, justified. One person starts pushing a little harder. They ask more questions. They explain more. They try to get clarity, reassurance, or engagement. And underneath that push is often a fear of losing connection, of being overlooked, dismissed, or left alone in something that matters. The other person starts pulling back. They go quieter, they minimize, they stay busy, they disengage emotionally. And underneath that pull is often a fear of being overwhelmed, criticized, or failing at something they don't know how to do well. So both of these responses make sense. They're not personality flaws. They're not signs that someone is bad at relationships. They're ways people try to get safe again when connection feels shaky. So the problem is that once protection takes over, attunement drops even further. The pushing starts to feel like pressure. The pulling away starts to feel like rejection. And now the relationship isn't just dealing with the original issue, it's dealing with fear on both sides. This is when people start saying things like, we can't talk without it turning into something, or I shut down because it's too much, or I feel like I'm always the one trying. Nothing about this means the relationship is broken. It means attunement has been disrupted, and people are responding in the only way they know how. We'll spend a lot more time with this in the next episode, but for now, just notice what you tend to do when connection starts to feel uncertain, whether you move toward pressure or toward distance. That awareness alone begins to change the pattern. One of the places people get tripped up is thinking that emotional attunement is something that you have to do to solve a problem. Like if you say the right thing, respond the right way, or get to agreement, then connection will come back. But attunement isn't a solution. It's a posture. It's the way you stay emotionally oriented towards someone, even when the issue isn't yet resolved. Attunement isn't agreement. It's not fixing. It's not understanding everything perfectly. And it's not intensity. You can be attuned and still disagree. You can be attuned and still not know what to do next. You can be attuned while things are unfinished. What matters is whether you stay present. Attunement sounds like, I'm here. This matters. I don't fully understand yet, but I'm staying. We don't have to solve this right away to stay connected. That posture alone changes the emotional climate, because when people feel emotionally met, their nervous system settles. They don't have to fight for connection or protect themselves from it. That is why trying to rush to resolution often backfires. People think they're helping by fixing, explaining, or pushing toward clarity. But without attunement, those moves often feel dismissive or pressuring. Attunement keeps the relationship intact while things are still in process. It says, we're okay enough to stay in this together, even if it takes time. And that's a very different experience than we need to get past this so things feel better again. That posture, staying rather than fixing, is what actually makes repair possible later. Before we wrap this up, I want to normalize something. Misattunement is not a sign that a relationship is failing. It's a sign that two people are reaching for connection in different ways, and they're missing each other. So let me give you an example I see often. I'm working with a couple right now where the tension shows up around sex. From his perspective, sexual connection is where he feels closest, most loved, most secure. So in his mind, the solution feels clear. If we can get aligned here, we'll be okay. From her perspective, it's very different. She has spent years trying to meet that need. And while sexual connection hasn't been meaningless to her, she's reached a point where she feels worn down, like it's never quite enough, like the goalpost keeps moving. So instead of feeling close, she feels pressured. And over time, she becomes less willing, not because she doesn't care, but because it feels like connection only counts in one direction. When they come in, he's often thinking, if she could just understand my need better, we'd feel close again. And she's not even always able to articulate what it is that she needs. She doesn't necessarily want long emotional conversations. She just wants to feel that connection between them goes beyond sex, that it's not conditional. What's important here is this. They're not arguing about sex. They're missing each other emotionally. He's reaching for connection through sexual closeness, and she's protecting herself from a kind of connection that has started to feel depleting. Both are responding to the same thing, a loss of emotional attunement. And neither one of them is wrong. This is what misattunement looks like in real life. Two people reaching, two people protecting, both wanting connection, neither feeling met. That's not a failure of love. It's a breakdown in emotional orientation toward each other. Before we close, I want to bring faith into this because what we're talking about isn't just relational or psychological, it's deeply biblical. When you step back and look at scripture as a whole, one of the most consistent patterns you see is that God doesn't wait for people to get it together before he moves toward them. He stays engaged when people are confused. He stays when they're afraid. He stays when things are unresolved, messy, or disappointing. Psalms 34 says that the Lord is near the brokenhearted, not near once they're healed, near when they're undone. When God describes his own character in Exodus, he calls himself merciful, gracious, slow to anger, and steadfast in love. That word, steadfast, matters. It means he doesn't rush and he doesn't pull away. Even the gospel itself follows this pattern. Romans says that Christ moved toward us while things were still unresolved. Love came first, change followed. That's important because many of us learned, often without realizing it, that closeness is something you earn by doing better, understanding more, or fixing what's wrong. But that's not how God relates to us. He keeps turning toward us. He keeps responding. He keeps staying involved, even when growth takes time. That posture, staying emotionally engaged instead of withdrawing or taking over, that's at the heart of attunement. And it's the same posture we're invited to practice with each other, not becoming someone else, not erasing desire or difference, not pretending things don't matter, but staying connected long enough for understanding to grow. When that kind of staying leads, change can happen without pressure. When it doesn't, even good intentions can leave people feeling alone. That's why this is important, not just for our relationships, but for how we live out our faith with real people in real situations. So let me pull this together for you. Today was about emotional attunement, what it is, why it matters, and why connection can break down even when there's real love, effort, and commitment. Attunement isn't a strategy or a solution. It's a posture. It's the way we stay emotionally oriented toward each other in everyday moments when things feel hard. So connection doesn't fall apart when fear or uncertainty shows up. We talked about how misattunement is common. It's not a failure, how people protect themselves by pushing or pulling away, and how a lot of what hurts in relationships starts to make sense once you understand what's happening underneath. If there's one thing I hope you carry with you, it's this. Connection isn't restored by fixing the moment. It's restored by staying engaged long enough for safety to return. So next week, we're going to build on this and talk about something that trips a lot of people up, why forcing connection backfires. We'll look at how good intentions turn into pressure and how desire turns into demand and why trying harder often creates more distance instead of more closeness. Before that, I want to give you something simple and practical. I created an attunement checklist that you can use in real time when things feel tense or off, and it's going to help you slow down the moment, notice what's happening internally, and stay oriented toward connection instead of self-protection. You can get that at myhappyvault.com/attunement. That's my free gift to you, myhappyvault.com/attunement. Thank you so much for listening. I really do know your time matters, and I'm glad you spent it here. I'm looking forward to talking with you again next week. If you want to take this work and apply it, go to myhappyvault.com. That's where I share free resources and ways to stay connected. I'll talk to you next time.